Hello guys, how's your day going? Mine not so good, but anyways. We are the team number 4 made by ours, and today we're going to talk about, biology. I will talk about the cellular transport. Everything that enters or leaves a cell has to pass through the membrane called cell membrane. This membrane regulates the stuff that enters into the cell, and this process is carried out by cellular transport. We can classify the transport in two categories, the active and the passive. But first of all, we need to know what is a concentration gradient. This thing occurs when the concentration of particles is higher in one area than another. Well, this is the basic thing. We can now continue with the cellular transportation. The active spends energy and goes against gradients of concentration. A gradient subtlety is the path of the sodium-potassium pump ATPase. The passive transport does not waste energy and goes in favor of concentration gradient. Do you remember the concentration gradient thing? I hope so. Well, in the passive transportation, the particles will diffuse down in concentration gradient from areas of higher concentration to areas of lower ones until they are evenly spaced. It can be simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and ultrafiltration, or also called dialysis. My teammate will talk about these three types of diffusion.
Hello, I'm Gabriel, and I will be talking about simple diffusion. Simple diffusion is a process by which solutes are moved along a concentration gradient in a solution or across a semi-permeable membrane. Simple diffusion is carried out by the actions of hydrogen bonds forming between water molecules and solutes. Water molecules moving to surround individual solute molecules, which maximizes hydrogen bonding. Hydrogen bonds are extremely temporary, however, and the solution is constantly stirred as a result. This helps distribute the result evenly throughout the solution. If molecules are small enough, this simple diffusion can happen across cell membranes between the individual phospholipids that make up the membrane. Water can be moved along its concentration gradient throughout a cell membrane in this manner, a form of simple diffusion known as osmosis. Well, osmosis is the spontaneous net movement of solvent molecules through a selectively permeable membrane into a region of higher solute concentration, in the direction that tends to equalize the solute concentration on the two sides.
Okay, I am Mario, and I'm going to tell you about facilitated diffusion. That's the passage of molecules depends on the presence of the integral membrane proteins that allow this passage. These proteins can form channels or complex transporters. The channel proteins with gate are classified according to the stimulus necessary them to open. Okay, there's a voltage depending channels which are opened by the change in the potential of the membrane. Ligand dependent, that's the key that opens them in a specific molecule. Okay, and movement dependent, that's a mechanical stimulus that stimulates the opening. Okay, it's more easy than to open that. And an example is like the transmission of electrical impulses in the nervous system. This is mainly due to the presence of voltage depending channels. Muscle contraction is due to the acetylcholine, that's like a ligand that opens itself to the channel that starts the process. Finally, our hair cells in the inner ear have channels dependent of movement. The sound generates movement, and these cells are able to capture it and turn it into an electrical stimulus thanks to the presence of these channels.
My name is Ian, and I'm going to talk about endocellulosis. Endocellulosis is a form of active transport. Endocellulose is the cellular process in which materials are brought into the cell. The materials try to get into the cell and the cell membrane shapes a vesicle so the material can go through. Endocellulose includes pinocellulose. Pinocellulose is like salt drinking. It's called like salt drinking because it transports particles suspended in fluids, so it's like they were drinking. These pinocytic vesicles fuse with lysosomes to break down the particles. This process requires energy from androgen triphosphate. The chemical compound mostly is used as energy imagery of animal cells. Pinocellulose is used primarily for clearing extracellular fluids. Then we also have phagocellulose, that is cell eating. It's called cell eating because there are a big amount of materials passing through the cell, even unicellular organisms. Phagocellulose is a process in which the cell engulfs a solid particle to form an internal compartment known as phagosome. Phagocellulose is involved in the acquisition of nutrients for some cells. This process is like eating at the level single-celled organism. In multicellular animals, the process has been adapted to eliminate debris and pathogens. And we also have the principal components on the endocytic pathway. There are early endosomes, late endosomes, and lysosomes. The endocytic pathway of mammalian cells consists of these membrane compartments which internalize molecules from the plasma membrane and recycle them back to the surface as in early endosomes and recycling endosomes, or serve them to degradation as in late endosomes and lysosomes.
Hello, my name is Salvador and I'm going to be talking about exocytosis. Exocytosis is the process of moving materials from within a cell to the exterior of the cell. This process requires energy and is therefore a type of active transport. Exocytosis is an important process of plant and animal cells as it performs the opposite function of endocytosis. In exocytosis, membrane-bound vesicles containing cellular molecules are transported to the cell membrane. The vesicles fuse with the cell membrane and expel their contents to the exterior of the cell. The process of exocytosis can be summarized in a few steps. 1. Vesicles containing molecules are transported from within the cell to the cell membrane. 2. The vesicle membrane attaches to the cell membrane. 3. Fusion of the vesicle membrane with the cell membrane releases the vesicle contents outside the cell. Types of exocytosis. There are 3 common pathways of exocytosis. One is the constitutive exocytosis, which involves the regular secretion of molecules. This action is performed by all cells. Constitutive exocytosis functions to deliver membrane proteins and lipids to the cell surface and to expel substances to the cell's exterior. Number 2 is regulated exocytosis that relies on the presence of extracellular signals for the expulsion of materials within vesicles. Regulated exocytosis occurs commonly in secretory cells and are in all cell types. A third pathway from exocytosis in cells, constitutive exocytosis, which involves the regular secretion of molecules. This action is performed by all cells. Constitutive exocytosis functions to deliver membrane proteins and lipids to the cell surface and to expel substances to the cell's exterior. Number 2 is regulated exocytosis that relies on the presence of extracellular signals for the expulsion of materials within vesicles. Regulated exocytosis occurs commonly in secretory cells and are in all cell types. A third pathway from exocytosis in cells involves the fusion of vesicles with lysosomes. These organelles contain acid hydrolase enzymes that break down waste materials, microbes, and cellular debris. Lysosomes carry their digested material to the cell membrane, where they fuse with the membrane and release their contents into the extracellular matrix.
I'm going to talk about the levels of organization. The first level is that complexity is that of the atom. Also, if we are strict, we could even describe this at atomic level. The atoms form molecules and biomolecules. The biomolecules constitute the organelles and structures. The set of organelles form the functional unit of life, the cell. a set of cells specialized in specific functions form a tissue. The tissues form organs. The organs are grouped into systems and in a multicellular organism. The system constitutes the individual. And the levels that go beyond a single individual are the population, that is made up of individuals of the same species, the community, or biocenosis, that is formed by a set of populations, the grouping of population of all domains together with the abiotic factors, the physical environment that constitutes the ecosystem, and finally the biosphere, that is the total set of ecosystems present on the Earth.